Rai, nai, nai con la vida, vida de la baila, cura con LaWayra, limpia, limpia, taita, vibrando con la hualca.
Hi guys, and welcome to ayahuascapodcast.com. As always, with you, the host, Sam Believ. Today we're joined once again by Oliver Glozik. This is his third time on this podcast. And welcome, Oliver. And what are the topics for today?
Thank you very much for having me. And today's topic is a lot about how ayahuasca is gaining popularity in the West, the benefits from it, the drawbacks as well, and how the whole renaissance of psychedelic revolution is happening once again, and also the mental health crisis that we are in most of the Western parts of the world.
Okay, so what we have on our hands right now is, on one side, a mental health crisis, which is, I believe, some statistics go anywhere between 20 to 30% of people in Western society, North America, Europe, that have some form of mental ailment, something like depression, anxiety. The conventional medical establishment doesn't seem to have any solutions. The antidepressants, they only temporarily cover up the symptoms, but the problem doesn't go away. They numb you to life. So plant medicines are on the rise. So we kind of have the cause, which is the mental health crisis, and the result of it is a psychedelic renaissance, the constant growth of plant medicines in popularity, which is, I think, a great solution inevitably. But as of now, the numbers are 25% of people are depressed, but only less than 1% of people have had ayahuasca. And hopefully this percentage keeps going up. So from your point of view, Oliver, as a retreat operator as well, same as myself, what have you observed as it goes in the increase of the popularity? And what do you think is the negative side of this increase?
Well, I think the first one, it's interesting because we're here in Colombia, and ayahuasca in some ways is more popular around the foreigners than it is with the Colombians. And I think it has a lot to do with a lot of celebrities openly talking about their ayahuasca experience, starting from Megan Fox, Will Smith, now even Jake Paul, but also a lot of entrepreneurs, thought leaders like Aubrey Marcus. He had Aaron Rodgers on last year as well. And very likely as well that your favorite content creator is associated with some type of plant medicine, whether it's ayahuasca or magic or like mushrooms, because I think we are so over dominant on our left brain that we're looking to feel again, that we're looking to become in our body as well. And of course, drugs are a big part of it, whether it's alcohol, whether it's some other synthetic drugs, but then in some ways they offer temporarily relief from like that over focus part on the left brain. But with these plant medicines, we can reestablish that connection with our body, with our heart. For me, first time I drank ayahuasca, didn't feel anything the first 3 cups. And I think because I was so head focused, always overthinking, always thinking about the next problem. And these plant medicines can ground us a lot more in ourselves. So I think that's one of the big reasons for the gaining of the popularity, also because so many public figures are talking about it. But I also think it can be a drawback, that it can be something, it's on my bucket list, or I want to be able to talk to my friends about it, that I did this as well. And I think ayahuasca, you should feel it in your heart because you feel like there's something within you that you want to overcome, something an emotional event that you haven't been able to process, to move past it, but also to create a vision for yourself, to to know yourself better on a deeper level, to see your blind spots, but not just something like, I also did ayahuasca. It can also like lead to the over glamorization of the experience, and it's like, I need to have done it, and I think that's not the way to do it.
Yeah, some of the example of our retreat here, we are, as always, reporting from LaWayra. We have 4 types of the retreats. We have 4-day retreats, we have 1-week retreats, we have 11-day retreats, and we have 18-day retreats. So we noticed that a lot of people that come for the 4 days, which is the minimum we provide, they come for those reasons, bucket list or just curiosity. And we notice how much different the groups are when they come for longer than those that come for a shorter amount of time, because the commitment is not there, the research has not been done, the intention has not been set properly. So this is the dark side, you can say, of the popularization of ayahuasca, because a lot of people do it for the wrong reasons. However, I personally believe even if you do ayahuasca for wrong reasons, there might be a part of you that is actually there bringing you to ayahuasca for the right reasons, but you don't have the connection for that part. And paradoxically enough, ayahuasca itself is the part that opens it up. For example, when I first did ayahuasca, as I like to say, the reason for it was a mix of curiosity and quiet desperation. It's like I was curious to do it, but I was also understanding that something is wrong with me and I don't seem to know what to do. So this combination led me to ayahuasca, and ayahuasca was a perfect tool to actually open me up. And eventually, now years later, I can go back to that event and understand that a lot of things started from there, and my growth and change started from there. But what we notice a lot of times with people that come for the 4-day retreats, and at the 4-day retreat, you only have 2 ayahuasca ceremonies. It's important to understand when working with ayahuasca, if it's your first time, first ceremony, half of the group will connect. Second ceremony, 75% of the group will connect. Third ceremony, 90% of the group will connect. And then after every ceremony, 2% more. Ayahuasca is not magic mushrooms. Ayahuasca is not like other drugs, because it's not a drug. It's very unpredictable. It's very unique. It has a mind of its own. And sometimes people come in and they like, I just want this experience. I'm going to have those 2 ceremonies. And then it just happened to be ayahuasca is not working for them. And then what we notice, whether those short-term people connected or not, some of them, because of the culture that we create at the retreat, where we explain to people, this is not about drugs, this is not about visions, it's about healing. Eventually, after having that experience, whether they have connected and had this breakthrough or whether not, then they book another 1-week retreat like a few months later, because they now understand what it's all about. So my goal for this podcast, and this is why I'm going in so much detail, is education about that topic, to sort of change the misconceptions about ayahuasca as being a drug. Ayahuasca is not a drug. Ayahuasca is a medicine. It's been so for thousands of years. It's only been called a drug for the last 50 years. And if you come to ayahuasca with that mindset of it being a sacred plant medicine that will heal you and help you, it will heal you and help you. If you start the communication early with the plant spirit, it will respond. So first of all, Oliver, what do you think about that? And what do you think about my maths about people and their, not connection, because you connect to the ayahuasca before you even drank it. The moment you decided to drink it, you establish a connection. What I'm talking more about is the breakthrough, this big bang moment that a lot of people expect from ayahuasca. What do you think about my formula? 50, 75, 90, and then 2% every night?
I think the 7-day retreats are amazing. And because it also allows you to decompress. It's not just like you come and you are gone right away again, but you have time to like go deeper in your intention, discover more things about yourself. Also, the more ayahuasca you drink, the deeper you go into your own process as well. At the same time, you know, people also have a life, and for some people it's easier to take off 7 days than it is for others. It's also understandable that for some people they have a lot of respect, and it's like, well, I'm not sure if like my first time I want to go right away for 4 ceremonies, and start off with 2 is, I think, in some cases also recommendable, especially if you want to take your first steps with ayahuasca, if you want to get to know ayahuasca. But if you are really looking for that deeper shift, then I'm a big fan of the 1-week retreats. But also what you said, in the end, the ayahuasca does what the ayahuasca does. And we've even had people after 1 ceremony who were just like, oh, I'm not even going to need the 2nd ceremony because I need to like a journal, and I feel like I got all the answers that I was looking for. I personally don't fall into that category, but there are people who then also say, like, hey, I might come back in 3 years, might come back in 5 years. I looked within, I found the answers that I was looking for. but also many times it's not that ayahuasca solves your problem. It shows you your problem in some ways even more. It confronts you with yourself. You see the things that you're doing good, what you're doing bad, and also shows you a path to healing. If we talk about mental health issues, I had a person after a ceremony said, like, I feel like I want to be closer again to people. And I noticed that people start to become a lot more human through drinking ayahuasca, more compassionate towards themselves, towards others, wanting to create also those non-transactional relationships. Because a lot of relationships in the West are based on, oh, I did this for that person, what is that person doing in return? And if you're always calculating, it's not going to serve you. But once you create those deeper non-transactional relationships in your life, you feel like you have a safety net. That's when a lot of the anxiety, the depression goes away. So that's a little bit of a detour. More specifically about the numbers, I think it depends from the batch of ayahuasca, how much ayahuasca you're sharing as well. Also, depending if you're there for 4 days or for 2 days. Let's say you're there for 4 days, you can take it a bit slower. For 4 ceremonies, you can take it a bit slower as well. Whereas if you're there only for 2 ceremonies, even though after 2 cups of ayahuasca, you're tired, your stomach is upset, you're just like, oh no, I don't want to drink. But then you remember your intention. It's like, hey, there's a reason why I'm here. And then you take the extra step. And then when you take the extra step, it's also rewarded. And maybe if you are there for 4 ceremonies, you say like, oh no, tomorrow is another day, and tomorrow is also another day, and it's good to have that patience with these plant medicines too. But we do have a lot of people connecting strongly within 2 nights as well. Mm-hmm. And we also work with a purgative that we have a purging day in the 7-day retreat where it really cleans out your body. And it's also an opportunity for people to drink before the ayahuasca. It's before the short retreat, and that way their body's really clean when approaching ayahuasca. It's part of the tradition that we follow, and that way, if you do like the extra credit, the extra homework, you're gonna connect more in the 2 ceremonies as well.
Definitely, but just a quick sum up from me personally. 1 week is perfect, both for the people that are coming for the first time and those who did it before and do ayahuasca once a year. 1 week is just optimal. 1 week for ceremonies. If you have done ayahuasca before several times, you don't have much time. All you have is like a long weekend, and you want to reconnect or maybe get answers for a few questions you have, go for 4 days. If you have not done ayahuasca before, or if you've done it before and you want to do a deep dive and like go really deep, or you have a specific issue to resolve, then choose 11 days or 18 days. Generally, we find that every month, a couple people do 18 days, couple people do 10 days, but most people do the weeks. And I think 1 week is just optimal. So that's just a quick word of advice. But reality is, it's not about connection, because you are connecting with the medicine. Even if you're just purging, you can go back in this podcast and listen. I think 2 or 3 episodes ago, I interviewed one of the patients, and he has felt that he has not felt anything during the retreat. He did 1 week and he thought it was mostly just purging. It was very mild. Then when he came back home, his wife looked at him. She said he changed. His kids noticed he changed. His parents noticed he changed. And then 6 months after that, he realized that, yeah, I truly changed. I'm no longer depressed. Then he messaged me and said, can you send me the LaWayra logo? I want to tattoo it. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So you might not even, a lot of stuff, a lot of work with ayahuasca is sub-perceptual. You might not even know that you're getting the healing, but you will inevitably notice the results. So, which brings us to the topic of, we're in the exciting times of psychedelic renaissance. There's once again research on psychedelics. There's once again people, working with psychedelics. There's some, loopholes in the laws which allow people to start retreats, and people work with ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms. They also work with San Pedro, and people can now finally start to get long-term release. There's also clinical studies. Things like ketamine are being legalized, and if done in the proper setting, provide great results. So it's a really exciting moment we live in because of that change and a lot of hope that comes and to heal this mental health crisis, but also it comes with another dark side, and that means that there's a lot of unregulated space, which allows for quick creation of, sort of quick 1 week sort of retreats, and that can bring some drawbacks as well, meaning like maybe people that don't wish the best, or maybe they don't respect certain rules, or maybe they want to take advantage of the patients. What do you think about that, Oliver, about that topic?
Well, it's pretty interesting because in some ways we started out like that, right? It's like, hey, I have a thinker here where we can do the retreat. I know a great shaman. I know some people who want to drink ayahuasca. Let's bring those three things together and let's start it. And we both had the heart in the right place, and you stay committed to the process, and we see the fruits of our labors, years after. At the same time, now looking back on it, it's also a bit crazy to think about that, in some ways it's an operation on the psyche of people. And for me to just say like, oh, I know a shaman and I know a thinker, and let's go drink some ayahuasca, and I'm going to give you even some advice and some recommendation, even though I've been like drinking ayahuasca for 1 year, it seems a bit absurd now looking back on it. I think having the heart in the right place is very important. And it's also a very delicate thing because, for example, people are in very open states, not just in the ayahuasca, but also in the sharing circles after as well. And everybody has their projections. I have my projections. And for me, it's very important to say, for example, in a sharing circle, when something is my personal opinion, that it's like, hey, this is the way that I see things. Look at it, feel into it for yourself, and see if you want to take that away with you, and those are things that develop over time. And I think that there can be those problems that somebody who's just starting out obviously doesn't have that. I mean, if you look at a therapist, he goes to school for how many years before he's able to work with a patient, and here it can be, I know a titan, I know a thinker where we can do some ayahuasca. But I also think in some ways you put out an energy and then somebody resonates with that, and then it clicks, because that person who comes to like the very novice retreat center, in some ways, he decides to go to that place. He could come to a very well-established retreat center. He could go to a luxury ayahuasca retreat center. He can go to a more affordable ayahuasca retreat center. He can go to the jungle and drink directly with the indigenous. So I think there's a lot of open market in some ways, which is good. And it goes back to also the responsibility of the participant to think, okay, where do I want to drink? Where do I feel safe? And I can say the people who first drank with me also had very powerful experiences, and the prices were a lot cheaper, and they got great results as well. But now, from a little bit more of a mature perspective, it does feel a bit absurd as well that on such important of a topic like mental health, if you then even add maybe thoughts about suicide into the mix and all that kind of stuff, that all of a sudden somebody is in a position that they, maybe in the beginning he was like, I want to help people bring people to ayahuasca, and now I have to deal with that person who has suicidal thoughts. It can be a lot for the facilitator as well. So it's a intricate topic.
It's much more complicated than it seems. It's important to understand that with everything out there, somebody have started it someday. So because there does not exist yet, or is in the process of creation, the industry of ayahuasca retreats, let's say the first university was founded, a long time ago, but who was taught in that university if they couldn't go to university to study? Somebody has to, it's like a chicken and egg sort of dilemma. What started first? Somebody has to start it. What helped me personally to feel good about starting a retreat, especially in its very first rudimentary form, as you say, here I am at the finca, I know a taita, I know people who are interested in the healing. What helped me was grounding myself in the tradition, obviously knowing like, okay, this person is a shaman and he comes from a family of a shaman, and they've been doing it for thousands of years, which is really nice and very helpful, and is a good start. However, I must admit that the indigenous way of doing things might not be exactly the perfect thing for the modern day people, because in the indigenous cultures, they have other containers which they can ground themselves in after the ceremony or before. So for us, then as we started organizing things and getting more professional, we started including more of a Western style integration and sharing circles and talk therapy. And I think kind of nicely grew to the spot where I'm very convenient that what we provide now is a very, very helping product, because once again, every year we have close to 1,000 people, and that talks to itself, because they message us, they let us know. But yeah, sometimes you get into situations where you get very difficult people, and you have to sort of pathfind and like navigate, new waters that nobody navigated before. Like when you get a person that is a suicidal, and then they're, they want to, they think those thoughts, and then you're worried, like, what if, tonight they just gonna kill themselves? It's like, it's a very tricky topic, but with a lot of love, with a lot of care, somehow it always turns out well. And then a lot of those suicidal people that came to our retreat as a last resort, as far as I know, they're all still alive, which it's a really nice thing to think about. But in the end of the day, we're not alone. We also have the ayahuasca, which is the main star of the show, which is actually doing the most of the healing. So you have the retreat center, you have the medicine, you have the group, and when you mix them all together it brings out that healing, which makes those suicidal people stop being suicidal. Feel the love of other people in the group, feel the love of the medicine, feel the love of the shaman, the facilitators, really connect with it and really heal. So, but yes, occasionally, unfortunately, because of how rushed everything is, there are some retreat centers that pop up for a few days or a few weeks or a few months that maybe start with not a best intention. They just think, they might look at as an established retreat center and think like, look at them, they have all these people and they make all this money. I'm just going to go and make money. And I think we talked about it in our first ever episode about how it is facilitating. So guys, go back and listen to it. If you want to start an ayahuasca retreat, you'll find a lot of wisdom there. But yeah, but the reality is, in this wild west of new industry being established, the time always shows who has right intentions, and it puts everything in its places. And the good places, I believe, survive and get improved, and the bad places eventually, nothing gets hidden forever, and they get brought to the clear water and slowly disappear. So that's on the drawbacks of the psychedelic renaissance. But the positive side is much bigger, because we are really desperate in the Western society for some kind of solutions. And I myself, when I felt like I was getting depressed and I didn't really know the solutions, and last thing you want is to take an antidepressant that numbs you down and also takes away your libido and will to do anything. So having found ayahuasca and having had that healing experience has been a blessing, and then a motivation to sort of spread the word, and exciting things are coming. I believe more nice retreats will be started over the next few years here in Colombia and in the world in general. More and more studies will be conducted that maybe will find a way to explain how exactly does the medicine work. And hopefully as the legalization increases and more places are allowed to drink medicine, they will not forget the tradition, because taking ayahuasca without the shamanic tradition is kind of like taking the roots off the tree. Then it will, I don't know how you can abuse ayahuasca. It's really difficult, because it's a really tough love kind of medicine, but definitely taking away the tradition can lead to a lot of negative side effects.
I'm also like, thank you very much for sharing. And a lot of movement because it's like a new field and so much need for people to find solution for their mental health problems. And for me, I'm more on the conservative side of the spectrum. You know, you mentioned ketamine, and then there's also MDMA therapy, and also, I believe, scientific studies about the benefits of both of these as well. And I've never taken ketamine, so I cannot talk from first-hand experience. But for me, what I really connect with ayahuasca is what you said, the tradition, and that people have been doing that for thousands of years. That I meet people who've been drinking ayahuasca for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and I see how they conduct themselves, how they live their lives, and I get inspired by that. Whereas with, with MDMA, I can see that when you take that and you feel all the love, it can get you out of a funk that you might have been in. So I'm not, and I think everything has its time and place as well. At the same time, addictive properties, how healthy is it for the body? Is it something that, been there for 50, 60 years? It's not something that I would want to lean on, not something that I would want my go-to thing to be. So for me, knowing that there is an ancestral path, knowing that there's been people who've been walking this before me, gives me a lot of security in it. It's not like I'm experimenting with it. It's not like, also I heard about some ketamine clinics where there's then people are, on the bed and with some white lights and all that kind of stuff. And it's more about injecting the substance and taking away the ceremonial aspect of it as well, because the ceremonial aspect is huge from my perspective, when it comes to these plant medicines, and to not overanalyze it again and have all this is how all of this works, but like experience it for yourself, talk with people who have done it. And of course, I understand there's also people who need to see the scientific evidence, but it's also so much more than just the DMT that you're taking in. It's a connection of the spirit of the plant, and following that tradition gives me a lot of confidence. And personally, I'm a bit skeptical about ketamine and then mushrooms, and then even people who then do a retreat and add 4 different medicines in one thing, and then add another bufo in there and this and that. I'm like, mixing too many things is also something that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, it can be very confusing. I have a very similar belief system. My approach to medicines, let's say if somebody calls them drugs, but I have not taken anything that doesn't have at least 1,000-year-old tradition. So yeah, I've tried marijuana a couple of times. It has ancient tradition, many thousands of years. I've had psilocybin mushrooms. They have thousands of year tradition. Ayahuasca,
alcohol,
San Pedro, alcohol. Yeah, it's I mean, some of them you always need to have be careful when you navigate, because every plant is different. There are benefits and drawbacks, but it definitely helps to understand that there has been thousands of years of people doing it. So it's like, let's say they discovered some nice new fancy psychedelic that you take it once and all your problems go away. But okay, what's going to happen in 10 years? What about your children? What's going to happen to your children? Does that affect your DNA? So I'm very skeptical about new stuff. And it's just good to see, like here's a shaman and here's his dad and his granddad was also a shaman, and they drank ayahuasca for all their life and they live to be 100 years old. This is really reinforcing, especially those medicines. I like the aspect of the traditional plant medicines with pain first, pleasure later. For example, with ayahuasca, when you drink it, I would say 70% of your ceremonies will be hard work, physical purging, mentally hard work. And then when you go back to your real life, you feel the relief and you feel good. So it's not an escape thing. It's not something you will just do on a whim and be like, here I have some ayahuasca in my bar. I'm just going to go take a cup. Like there is no impulse. You will never see a junkie under the bridge taking ayahuasca, to escape from his pain. It is not like this. It doesn't have that tendency. But with ketamine, for example, if it's done outside of the clinical setting, people die from ketamine. people abuse things like that. So when you go into this world of medicine / drugs, because what we're talking about now is arguably medicines or drugs, like where do you draw the line is very personal. But if you go into this world and start exploring, definitely think about it. And of course, we're biased because we both run an ayahuasca retreat. But the reason I ended up in this work is because I've tried it myself and I've seen it. I've seen the tradition. I've seen young children drinking ayahuasca in the jungle and being the most awoken and the most bright-eyed kids I've ever seen. And then everything till the old people. And I've never seen ayahuasca being abused. However, you do see other substances being abused. So just be careful, do your research, make sure you're going to right places, you're going to drink right medicines, and just be safe.
I got a question for you, Sam.
Yeah.
Apart from ayahuasca, what is something that you would recommend somebody to do when they have anxiety, when they experience depression, to overcome that? Or people who even come here and have that awe-inspiring experience, and then they're just like, oh, but I'm gonna go home, and then I'm gonna be in those familiar situations, and those people, they're gonna trigger certain things in me. So apart from ayahuasca, what are things that you can recommend people to overcome those mental health issues?
So those are the good old advice that your mom would give you, kind of things. Because when people come to the retreat, before they leave, we always say, you now have the newly found flexibility in your brain. You are suggestible, which means this is the best time for you to start with good habits. So for example, at our retreat, we always give people an integration journal, which is a journal there you can start journaling. So one of the best tips would be pick up journaling. If you have a thought, don't allow it to bounce around your brain like a stray bullet. Capture it, put it on the paper, analyze it, and this really helps. Meditation, amazing tool. And if you start meditating right after the ayahuasca retreat, you will feel like it's going to hit you so much better. Breathing exercises, Wim Hof style breathing exercises, very simple, 40 deep breath, you hold your breath. It's amazing. It can kind of like yank you out of your negative state of mind very quickly. Ice bath, amazing. Once again, you get into the cold, all the thoughts magically go away. Walks in the nature, doing sport, going to the gym. If you are more advanced and you want to take the plant path, using rapé also really helps to center your thoughts. I'm a big fan of work with tobacco. Even taking tobacco, I'm not saying smoking cigarettes, but taking a tobacco and smoking it ceremonially, doing cleanses for yourself also really helps. Doing plant baths, amazing tool. Kind of, I guess, hard to find in the Western world, but there are certain plants that are very common. Cinnamon, you boil some cinnamon with some lemongrass and it's already a cleansing plant bath. That really helps sometimes for myself personally when I feel heavy to sort of wash it away. So all the good habits, everything your grandma told you to do is the kinds of things you want to do. And in the end of the day, as I like to say, ayahuasca is the gateway. It's a door to this world of self-improvement, self-growth, and spirituality. You don't have to be drinking ayahuasca every day for the rest of your life. You start drinking ayahuasca, you create a relationship with it. You can drink it once a year, once every few years, or when something happens and you need to process emotions quickly. But in between those retreats, the integration that you do, the real applicable life change that you do, all the good habits that you implement, and everything works, including, I know some people that practice religions in a very sustainable way. That can also help. Prayer can also help. Everything. It's like everything you do matters as long as it's in the right direction. And ayahuasca can just be this catalyst around which your healing journey will begin. What about you, Oliver? Do you have anything to offer to add to that list?
Well, you have a pretty long list, and all of those are absolutely great. What can I do right now to get rid of that anxiety, depression that I'm feeling? And a lot of times once you start moving, once you start exercising, then you'll start feeling better as well. what I found for myself is also in some ways recreating a different identity. You know, before I was comparing myself a lot to others, to their progress, my progress, how's that person doing, always kind of like evaluating where do I stand in the social status and all that kind of stuff. And when I had those thoughts, like, no wonder that I'm anxious, no wonder that I'm feeling judged. And it was a big journey for me to re-meet myself, to find myself on a deep level, to accept myself the way I am, and to not have my self-worth dependent if that person says yes or no to me, whether it's a romantic partner, whether it's a rejection in business or friendship. So for me, it has been a lot about cultivating that self-love and letting go of those ideas of, you know, Instagram and everybody has a perfect life and how can I play towards it, and I want to have that good job so then my parents are proud of me, or the people who I graduated with think that I'm a big shot or whatever. I think those are thoughts that make us mentally sick, and by changing that identity, those ways of thinking, by ways of being, one thing that I notice that people through ayahuasca, I mentioned earlier, start to become more human, and that humanness, I think, helps with that anxiety and depression. Because for me, I feel very little anxiety. I can count it on one hand how many times I felt anxiety this year, and every time I felt it, it was a signal to me that something is wrong in my life. And to like feel into it, like, hey, why is that person, why is that situation so impactful that it gets me out of my state of inner stability? What does that person, what does that situation represent to me? Why do I think that has such a big impact on my life? And how can I switch that to create that inner abundance within, to not be dependent on those people, situations anymore? And apart from all these tangible recommendations that you shared, I think that inner journey process, which also, of course, ayahuasca helps facilitate, has been very transformational for me to overcome those anxiety, that unsureness within me.
So yeah, it's not just stuff that you add in your life, like good habits, but it's also things that you take away, like, you know, toxic thinking patterns and also toxic people. If I tell you right now, toxic person, who does come in mind from your friend group? If you thought about a name or a face, if you can, just, you know, take your distance from that person, because you can come to ayahuasca to experience healing and heal the trauma, but you can't heal the trauma that's being formed. And if you have a friend that makes you feel bad about yourself, then avoid that person, or maybe have one conversation where you call them out and you say, you know, you actually make me feel bad and I don't want that anymore in my life. Because you can come and drink ayahuasca and feel better and then go back to them. And the reason I tell it is because people come here and then they report, it's like, I came here and I felt so great, and then I had this idea to go visit my sister, and my sister made me feel terrible, and now I'm back to square one, and I feel like coming back again and doing ayahuasca, which of course will lift you up from the pit. But you also need to understand that if you're doing that work with ayahuasca and you're investing your time and your money to get the relief, you also need to cherish it and do all the good things and avoid all the bad things to allow you to stay in that space. And for those of you who have been to the retreat and have connected and felt amazing, best you've ever felt before, what really helps as well to reconnect with that feeling is to listen to the medicine music, to, you know, meditate and do things that remind you of that experience, and hang out with people that you met at an ayahuasca retreat, because they will be your family now. You're in the same journey, you started at the same time, and you can find a lot of things in common. Like me and Oliver, why do we meet up and talk and record this podcast is because he runs an ayahuasca retreat, I run an ayahuasca retreat. We have problems in common, and it's kind of nice to talk about that. So find people who you have common problems with, and remember that we are social creatures, and a lot of your healing will come from that group dynamics. And we are very lonely right now as a society. So
Thanks for mentioning that. That
find
loneliness
people.
is a big topic.
Yeah, find people that you vibe with. Find people that you can talk to. Make your own mini word circles at home. Yeah, I really love word circles. Like, it's such a simple and such a magical thing. Like, whenever I have any conflict in a team, I just collect everyone. It's like, guys, let's speak. And if everyone speaks their truth and everyone truly listens, there's almost no problem you can't resolve. It's just right now for us, the communication is missing. Like, if there's a conflict, people just shut down and they just avoid and leave and go to another environment where the same situation repeats. But I think we're losing our topic. What was our topic? Our topic was
the gaining of popularity of ayahuasca, mental health crisis,
the growth of popularity. So it's an exciting time to be alive, definitely. It's a time where I keep saying in the groups when people arrive, like, my dad is an alcoholic. He faced similar problems when he was in his he was young and he was starting to have family and the stress. And when he was trying to run away from that pain or from that depression that was starting to form, he chose alcohol. So there was no ayahuasca back then. He didn't know better, and he just followed that step, and then it put him on the wrong path. Now we live in a time where you have ayahuasca, where you have yoga retreats, meditation retreats. You have this whole wellness culture, and you're one Google search away from starting to change your life. And it's amazing. It's super exciting. Like, I'm thinking, what if I didn't find ayahuasca? Instead, when I was starting to get depressed, I would, I don't know, smoke marijuana or start drinking a lot, or where would I be now? And it's like, how awesome it is to be alive in this time. And yes, there will be some negative moments. Maybe some people will try and abuse power that ayahuasca gives you, and maybe try to take advantage of people. Or my biggest concern is, like, when you work with ayahuasca, people get in a very suggestible state. They really open up. So it's really important for us as facilitators to maintain that neutral stance where we're not promoting a specific way of thinking or a religion or something like that, because it's very easy if there are some retreats I've heard about where the leader is a bit of a narcissist, and they make it all about themselves and start to create like it starts to get like a cultish vibes. I'll answer that later myself. But a tricky question for you, Oliver. What's the difference between a cult and an ayahuasca retreat?
Well, I think what's important for me is to remind people of their power. That I like to say, we grow up, and in the beginning we start to listen to our parents, then to school, society, university, whatever. And now it's not about now you need to listen to the shaman or to the facilitator or whatever, but that you discover your own inner voice and have the courage to follow that. And I think in a cult, it's more about putting the next person on the pedestal, and he has all the answers, and he has all the answers for your life. But who is that person to have the answer for your life? You need to connect with that own inner mastery, with your own intuition, and deep down. And sometimes it can feel more like a saying that, all the answers are within, but with ayahuasca, you can start removing that conditioning and figure that truth out within yourself. And it's for me to know that everybody carries that divine spark within them, and I want to cultivate more and more of that divine spark within me, so it inspires others to find that divine spark within themselves, and they're not going to need me to solve their problems because they found that connection towards themselves. And I think that's the way I see the differences if the ayahuasca retreat is run in the right way.
Great answer, because we have not rehearsed that one. So I would explain the same thing, but only with different words. With a cult or a religion, you have a person that had a sacrament or had a vision, then they write a book, and now you have to blindly believe in their vision or in their truth or in their interpretation of the divine. At an ayahuasca retreat, or especially at a good one, you are the ones as patients who are having the sacrament. Then you come to us in a word circle after the ceremony, and then you tell us what you see, and you tell us about how the universe works. So nobody if you come to any other retreat and not our retreat or Oliver's retreat, observe that. If somebody is trying to, the flow of information should be going from the group participants to the organizers. So except from obviously the organizational part, they should teach you how to navigate your experience and stuff like that. But if you come to a retreat and they tell you what to believe in or use a certain religious methodology, or they might, basically guide you in some direction that feels foreign to you, this would be the red flag. So when you go somewhere, make sure there's space for you. The good test would be, no matter what religion you're from, no matter what you believe, it must all be acceptable, because I do believe that all the religions, they kind of talk about the same thing but in a different language. So I believe that we covered the topic pretty well about the growth. And it is exciting, guys. It is really exciting, and I think good things are coming for us as a society. I do predict that within the next 10 years we'll go from what is ayahuasca to when's the last time you did ayahuasca, kind of like it happened with the meditation. I do dream of a world where one day we wake up and everyone has had ayahuasca, or at least similarly compatible experience, and people are more loving and more open. I'm an optimist. I believe it will happen and life will be great, but maybe not. What do you think, Oliver? What do you believe in?
Well, it's interesting because my mom is a yoga teacher for more than 25 years. And when she started, yoga was not a thing in Europe. Like, it's like, oh, okay, you do these poses or whatever. And now it's like the most natural thing. Like, oh, what can I do to feel better? Oh, try some yoga. And it's, in some ways, it's like it came from India. Now it's like the opposite side of the world. But I see it because people are looking for solutions. And if you look for a solution, you find an answer. And it's obvious that ayahuasca can be that answer. And, at one point there's going to be the tipping point where it's going to be even more socially acceptable to do it. Because, there's people who come to the retreat center who say like, oh no, I don't want to be in pictures. I don't want to have my face publicly be associated with ayahuasca because some social norms. And I can see that changing a lot in the next 5, 10, 15 years, that many people will see that as positive things when somebody says like, oh, I'm doing ayahuasca, I'm maybe even going to a therapist, I'm doing things to figure myself out, to become a better human, and this is the path that I'm taking for that. So I do see how I saw yoga expand from my mom in the last 25 years. I can hopefully we'll see that same development with ayahuasca as well.
And when that happens, guys, everyone and their grandma will be listening to this podcast. So you're the early comers, the early birds. So on that positive note, guys, thank you again for listening. Thank you, Oliver, for coming. Once again, you listen to ayahuascapodcast.com. As always with you, the host, Sam Believ. If you are interested in attending one of our retreats, go to LaWayra.com. LaWayra is spelled on my t-shirt right here. For those of you who are listening and not watching the video, it's LaWayra.com. And thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the other episode.
Con la vida, vida de la baila, cura con la guaira, limpia, limpia, taita, viva.